Welcome to the 3 dimensions of the breath practice. This is a slightly more dynamic practice, attempting to get the breath lower down into the diaphragm. So, warning first about this practice, please do not attempt this if you are under 18, as you are still developing, pregnant, if you have any kind of heart condition, recent injury in this area, so chest, ribs, back, any serious mental health issue, specifically bipolar or schizophrenia. So 3 dimensions of the breath practice is where we learn how the rib cage moves, and this is useful for those of us who tend to hyperventilate, so upper chest breathers, or if you tend to collapse on the out breath. So perhaps, I'll just give you an example of that. If you're someone who breathes in, breathes out, and sort of collapses into that out breath. So either of those would suggest a fight, flight, freeze or fawn response to stress and trauma. So just notice if you are an upper chest breather, if you tend to breathe into your chest, could be quite rapidly, quite shallow breaths, or if you're someone who tends to need to take a lot of deeper breaths and sort of collapses on the out breath. So this practice can help increase lung capacity and strengthen the lungs for more dynamic practices further on. So let's start by placing our hands on the lower rib cage, and we're going to try to breathe into our hands in this position. And this is the first dimension of the breath. So if I just demonstrate here. So if you could just trace your lower ribs. So trace the lowest rib on the rib cage down here, these last 2 floating ribs. Sort of comes around like this. You can feel that. And then just placing your hands there, just under that last rib there on the rib cage, the lower rib cage. It's almost like your bucket handles. And then we're just going to attempt to breathe into the hands here. So taking nice deep breaths in through the nose. Breathing into the hands. Just feeling the hands expanding with the breath. So you're really trying to send the breath lower into the body here. Into the diaphragm. And then just slightly gentler breaths now. Just seeing if you can still breathe into the hands. Pushing the sides of the body into the hands. And you can even try experimenting just breathing into one hand. So now just try breathing into the right hand. It's quite difficult, it takes a lot of practice, but you can just direct the breath into one lung. So breathing into the right lung, into the right hand. And then try the left hand. And just notice if it's easier to breathe into one hand over the other. Quite often it's easier to breathe into the right hand because the left hand, the space on the left hand side is taking up with the heart, so the lung has less capacity, less space to expand. I'm finding it's easier to breathe into the right than the left, and then again just breathing into both hands. Well done. So you notice that sort of expansion here in the diaphragm, the lower rib cage. Breathing into your hands, breathing out. Okay, so let's try the second dimension of the breath. And this is what we call the pumping action. So it's here at the chest. It's the part of the rib cage that's attached to the sternum. And this gets lifted up and down with the breath. So we've got the breathing out, the expanding out down here. And up here we've got the kind of lifting up and down. So we can add on here by making a fist with our hand and placing that in the middle of the back. So if that is comfortable for you, if not, you can sit this one out. But if you can, make your hand into a fist and just rest that in the middle of the back there. Place the other hand on the chest here. And then breathing in here, breathing out. You get a sense of the rib cage moving back into your hand, as well as forward. So slow breaths here, noticing this movement, the expansion forward and back. Yeah, it's interesting, I can feel that on the front, not so much on the back, but I can feel movement in the back. So yeah, it's kind of making this kind of movement. So we've got that down here, quite low down here, and then further up here. And then we've got the third dimension of the breath. So we can experience this by placing one hand high up here on the collarbone and the other on the belly. And just take some nice, soft, gentle breaths here. And what you'll notice is the hands sort of coming away from each other on the in-breath, and then coming back together again on the out-breath. Away, together. So you're really sending the breath all the way down into the belly here. Filling the belly and chest with breath. So yeah, you're creating this kind of movement, sort of moving away, coming back together again. Now you might get a sense of that full breath, what's happening in the rib cage in this upper part of the body with a full in-breath. So relax your hands now. Just hands relaxed in your lap, arms down by the side of the body. Soften your eyes and close the eyes if that's comfortable for you. As we experience all three dimensions of the breath coming together now. So keep the spine nice and long, keeping that elevation in the spine, just dipping the chin slightly. If you're someone who tends to collapse at the end of the out breath, and instead just notice the natural pause at the end of the out breath without the need to collapse. So just breathing deeply, slowly, softly now. Notice that natural expansion at the bottom, at the top, in front and behind. Just a couple more breaths here, noticing that full breath, the 3 dimensions of the breath. One more here. And relax. Let go of the breath. Just allow your breath to return to its natural rhythm. So hold this in mind as a visual reminder of this practice. If you imagine that your torso, that this is your body, your body is your spine. So this is the spine. And if we bring our hands out in front of us, our arms out in front of us, hands like this, and imagine that your fingers are the rib cage, this bony cage that's encasing your heart and lungs. So the heart and lungs are in here. This is the spine, heart and lungs are in here. This is the rib cage. And as you breathe in, just feel the arms and fingers gently lift and expand. So this is illustrating your rib cage, gently expanding, lifting, and coming back together again. Well done. Hold on to that as a visual reminder.